Well, the first question, I think that in, in one way, I think that doesn't have doesn't has to be mad with Doctor House, but in other way, Doctor Cudis has factors to be mad with him because yes, Doctor House is lying to her to save a patient, but I think that when they start the relation, may she or Doctor Cudi may feels hurt because mm, she doesn't may have that um, capacity to trust in whatever that Dr. House says him or do in the future because that situations because there are current situation that occurs day by day, but if we see that in the ambit of the professional, I think that Dr. House do that because they want seriously to save her patients, like believing it was the right course of action given the circumstance. In his mind, maybe the urgency of the situation might have outweighed the potential harm caused by the deception of Dr. Cody in the relationship when she knows that lie. And in other way, I think that Dr. House has a certain point in that situation. Dr. Cudis may doesn't have so mad with Dr. House. Well, the second question, I think that Dr. House's approach to following rules in his job is as a diagnostician is a subject of much debate because on one hand the rules and protocols in medical situations, medical areas is for good reasons, maybe to the security of say or to take the patient in a safety way, ethical standards, effective treatment, however, so much more. But Dr. House, I think that is someone who operates outside conventional norms, challenging authority and pushing boundaries because maybe if you see it's not the more ethic way that he has to operate, but at the end of the day he resolved the problem, he resolved the diagnostic that half of the patient, he solved helped the life of the patient. So I think that maybe Dr. House don't do it in the way that may have to be, but he saved at the end of the day he saved the patient. So maybe it's like the phrase that the the result proved the way or something like that. But I think that maybe Dr. House can follow the rules a little bit more maybe and make the problems that they have by don't following the rules may just disappear and get her job more easier. With the third question, I think that the actions that Dr. Curry had do not make much sense for me because or of the same ego that she has is what does not leave her in that situation and don't stay in a bad way with Dr. House because when Dr. House life was in danger, she didn't hesitate to be there and no longer be angry. But the moment she found out that he was no longer at risk in her life, magically the anger returned and more than that is just because of the lie. But I think that if is the ego that doesn't let her stay in a good way with Dr. House, because maybe it's just that Dr. House is he had no Dr. House had not apologized for the lie, and is she ego that doesn't let her maintain that. Is I think that is sad. This is that, and I think it doesn't a good way, because you know with who are you, and you know that Dr. House is doesn't in that way. Is doesn't he doesn't think that he was mad doing that. So they apologize. Maybe never is going to pass, I think. Well, in the last question, I think it's a 50-50, because depend on the person, depends on what situation, on when past that situation that you have to do this or that. Say being honestly or saving up, for example, a life, because it's depends on the person, if how much they evaluate to be honest with he or wherever, whenever, because I think that the it's a in this situation is a complex ethical question, because this challenge our fundamental principles, because on one hand, honestly is valued as a cornerstone or trust and integrity, but how do we, or you, or she, reconcile the tension between truthfulness and the imperative to save lives? Because is that situation, you can be honestly, or maybe almost of the time be honestly in your daily life, with your boyfriend, girlfriend, parents, family, friends, but maybe in this situation that life is depending on you, if you are honestly, maybe you get drunk and doesn't and can't save that life. So I think that maybe Dr. House has the dilemma, because if he was honestly in that situation, may the the doctors, the hospital may stop him, and maybe the patient maybe die. But with he took he took that risk to save the life of the patient, and finally he saved her life. So I think that in that situation, you may doesn't be so honestly, but you get reward by saving her life if and the patient.